Are we good to get going? Cool. Hi, my name is Alex Moyet, and I am the Marketing Director at Curve Digital. Thank you so much for coming to my talk. I know it's always very busy at Develop. Just some quick housekeeping, if you wouldn't mind setting your phones to silent. And also, I'd be extremely grateful if you would fill in an assessment after the talk. And not to influence your scores here, but I just got married on Saturday, so this is essentially my honeymoon. I've come here to be with you all, so very high ratings would be extremely appreciated. My name is Alex Moyet, and I'm going to be talking about some kind of simple, free strategies that hopefully you can all put into place from today to help promote your indie games or studios. So just to give you a bit of a background as to my career, just to see kind of what I'm talking about today, I started my career working for the advertising agency for Xbox many a year ago, before working in-house at Sony as a product manager. I was lucky enough to work on some really fantastic franchises there, including Killzone, The Last of Us, and Uncharted, before moving in-house to Media Molecule, one of their first-party studios, to work as a commercial strategist. Last year, then I set up my own marketing consultancy where I worked with 9 indie studios and their titles before recently joining Curve Digital as marketing director. So that's not just kind of blow smoke up my own arse. It's more just to kind of make the point that I've been lucky enough to work with a real variety of studios, from AAA to indie as well, and across everything from console to mobile VR. So I've really kind of seen firsthand how much more difficult it has become over the years for everyone to get significant attention for their games. The competition presented by the titles coming out at the moment, it's increasing, it's getting bigger and bigger, budgets are shrinking, teams are sometimes shrinking, and a lot of fantastic games, particularly indie games, get lost in the noise, and that is really upsetting for anyone that loves games and loves the industry. So my aim for this talk, and hopefully you'll find it useful, is to give you all some kind of simple tips and tricks that you can put into place from today to market your game regardless of your budget or your experience levels, which often, when you're a small team making a game isn't huge. So having worked on both, I'm often asked about how the marketing approach differs, how the strategy differs between promoting an indie game and a AAA game. And I would actually say that the difference is largely similar to developing a AAA game versus an indie game. So AAA game, you've probably got much larger teams, bigger budgets, and the games might be a bit more ambitious in scope. But essentially, the core ingredients of making a game, the core objective of making a game, of making a really entertaining, interactive piece of content, that's the same. So if you kind of transfer that analogy across to marketing, regardless of how much budget or third-party support you have, the core objective then is the same. It's to promote and sell your game. And the strategy for this is relatively universal. If you're being extremely reductive, it kind of boils down to 4 key elements. And the first element is finding out what is unique or interesting about your game, who is going to be interested in buying it, where that audience is, where you can find them, and fourthly, finally, how and when to tell this audience about your game. So that's, those 4 things, again, being very, very reductive, those are the bare bones of any marketing campaign. And I think just understanding that should hopefully take some of the fear away from it for the people that haven't done any marketing of their games before, because it can be as simple as that: what, who, where, when, and how. So bearing that in mind, I wanted to give you hopefully some useful tips. We'll see 7 tips and tricks that you can put into practice and help promote your games or your studios. So the first one of these is research and measure. So I appreciate a lot of you here might not have any formal marketing experience, any formal communications experience, and I'm often asked, where on earth do you start when putting together a marketing campaign? And the first and the most vital thing to do, as boring as it may sound, is just do a lot of research and analysis. And it's the same when you're doing any kind of R&D for your game. It should be the same, starting off with seeing exactly what your competition is, what you should be doing, and why. So what is the most unique or interesting thing about your game? Hopefully something that you're already able to articulate between you as a team. If you have the time, you can do peer reviews, talk to your friends, talk to your peers in the industry, have little demos, even just, if it's even your bedroom or your garage, it doesn't matter. Nothing has to be formal or expensive. Just start talking to your friends, start talking to people that play games, start getting their opinions. And you can start validating your hypotheses about what you think is unique, interesting, fun, sticky, playable, whatever it might be about your game. And if you can't find something unique or interesting about your game, take a long, hard look at your project because it's going to be extremely hard to market, probably quite hard to make. Make a different game. So to find your target audience, one of the easiest things you can do is to investigate the competition. So, you know, what titles out there? Sounds very simple, but this is stuff that people don't often do at the beginning of the project, and the marketing suffers as a result. So what titles are out there that are similar? Who are you competing against? What are you competing against? What are the elements of those games? Really analyze what are the elements of those games that are resonating with the audiences. This competitive analysis is really, really essential to pull together your launch and content strategies. You know, research when these titles are releasing, what social media channels are they using to promote the games, how are they talking to their audiences, what assets are they using trailers, are they using GIFs, are they doing behind the scenes, are they doing live streaming, what are they using and what seems to be generating the most conversation. So, you know, this isn't just to say, just copy what everyone else is doing. I think we'd all be not in a great position if we did that, but do absolutely get into the habit of analyzing what works, what doesn't work, and why. Apply this to your own work, apply this to your marketing. And as you start to build your own community, and I'm sure a lot of you might have your own channels already, whether they're personal channels, game channels, studio channels, you have to monitor and analyze everything you do. Now, if you know you're clever enough to make a game, you're absolutely clever enough to look at some inbuilt analytics tools on social media. On Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, they're all relatively sophisticated for beginners, and you can export a lot of that data for free, really start dialing down some of the key elements behind successful outreach, the best times of day to post, what kind of media your audience responds best to, what game content that you've put out is generating the most engagement and conversation. Measure as much as you can, analyze, learn, and improve. So again, it's a bit boring, but it's kind of commonly overlooked. Do your research, do your analysis, because as fluffy as marketing can seem, the best marketing always comes from a place of information and data and science, I think, anyway. And another key piece of advice I would give within reason, if you're unsure, it's absolutely okay just to put something out there and see what happens. As long as you're not doing anything, you know, offensive, illegal, don't do those things. There really is no harm in experimenting. You know, find your tone of voice, find what about your game resonates, monitor, analyze, learn. So the second point, a bit more fun, invest in your community. So it should go without saying that a social community, whether online or offline, that needs to be maintained. You need to start, build conversations, be active, be interesting, be interested. So I think one of the greatest examples I've seen of this is a game called Ooblets. I don't know if anyone's seen it. Ooblets? Oh, good, some fans. It's a game that was announced almost a year ago. I've been following on social media, and they've gone from just being a tiny team to then having the support of Xbox and publishers and love and event space and bigger budgets. And that's all from having just put out GIFs and glitches and cute images on social media. And just from that small space of just talking about the game from a very personal perspective, they've got a really fantastic following. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's kind of a cross between like Pokemon and Animal Crossing with extra cuteness chucked in. But they're doing a great job of content creation and generation, so check out Ooblets if you haven't seen it. But whilst it's absolutely essential to build and show your appreciation for the community as a whole, the best community managers in video games and in different sectors as well, they spend a lot of time identifying and building relationships with specific individuals. So these are the really active, influential community members. Maybe they're just the people that reply to your posts most. Maybe they've set up fan sites on the bigger end of the scale. They really generate a lot of engagement with your game, a lot of conversation, and a lot of time help spread information about it as well. But there are a huge amount of ways to show your appreciation for these particular community members, and I would absolutely encourage you to do so. So on the kind of obvious end of the scale, if they send you a message, if they post you on social media, reply to them. If they send you some fan mail, send a thank you card. Favorite, retweet, whatever it may be. Post out the odd bit of studio merchandise as a thank you. These are kind of like free goodies. But engaging with your community in a much more personal way, it can prove like a huge bang for buck. So maybe consider inviting some of your most loyal community members for a tour of the studio. And that could absolutely just be a random office space. It doesn't matter. It's always interesting to someone where you're creating, how you're creating. Maybe you can jump on a quick Skype call, actually chat to them one-on-one, let them ask some questions. If you have that trust, maybe let them know in advance if you're making exciting announcements, kind of give them a sneak peek of it. Again, if you've got that trust level and you're not subject to any embargoes. Those are the kind of things that really, really mean a lot to those people and absolutely doesn't cost you anything. If you've got a spare ticket to E3 or a booth space that you're doing PAX, invite one of your fans to join you on the booth space. They're going to be talking about your game. They're going to be evangelizing your game. Put the names of your biggest supporters in your in-game credits. They're all essentially free ideas, but in turn will generate a lot of goodwill, a lot of engagement within your community. So those are just really quick, kind of like free ideas, but I would always think again about those money can't buy experiences, which will always return the most, as conversation as well as a goodwill. So my third point is to be selective. And again, it can seem quite obvious. A lot of this is kind of common sense, but stuff that I definitely in my career have not seen people doing. That's why I like to talk about it. It's being selective, and it's really important making the game and marketing the game to not overstretch yourself, and especially with regards to social media. I think this is really important. You should only be present on the channels, the social media channels, that you have the time and the resource to support. I think there's a lot of pressure to feel like you've got to be on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and have your own blog and have your dev diaries and do your Twitch and do your YouTube. Don't do it. If you've only got a few hours a week to talk about your game because you're so busy making it, of course, that's absolutely fine. Pick one channel and do your very best to promote and grow your audience there. It's so much better to have one highly engaged channel than 10, 20, where you're fragmenting your audience, you're essentially using the same content. Don't do it. You're not going to be impactful in any of them. And also, pick the best channel for your audience. I think a lot of devs fall into the trap of, well, I personally use Twitter, or I personally use Facebook. That audience might not necessarily be the best channel for the audience that's going to be buying your game. Or it might not be the best for the content that you're able to produce. So maybe you're not great at putting together videos. Well, maybe don't look at video channels. Maybe look more image or content, copy-based content. That's fine. Again, don't replicate content. There's no point having the same image and putting on Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook because it's the same people reading the same message. It's boring. They will unsubscribe. Don't make the mistake of thinking that what works well on Facebook or Instagram will also work well on Twitter and Snapchat. All of the social channels have very different audiences, different ways to engage, and different content that does better than others. And it's very, very simple just to Google this, find out best practice. So do absolutely do that. Do be selective. Don't overstretch yourself because it's a waste of your time, and your time is very precious. So my fourth tip is cross-promotion. This for me is actually the most important of these strategies, and it's the one that I would definitely take away if you can take away any of these, because it's potentially the biggest opportunity to grow your audience with zero budget. And that's cross-promotion from a big brand. So I can guarantee that any indie studio, big, small, every one of you here, will be working at some point or already be working already with a larger partner in some form or another. So platform holders, Sony, Xbox, Nintendo, could be Facebook, Valve, Apple, Google, Amazon, Unity, Unreal, Autodesk, Samsung, HTC, Oculus, it doesn't matter. All of you will at some point come into contact with a bigger brand. And all of these brands have got huge marketing teams and huge marketing budgets dedicated to just working with developers and their games to promote their own brands and services. So of course, I'm sure that these partners will also be just looking for the best content in and of itself. But if you can also find a way that your game benefits their business objectives, you're much more likely to get support from them and from their channels. So, for example, maybe you're making a really addictive couch co-op game, and that can help hardware teams sell additional controllers, for example. Or maybe you're making an educational or a social game, and that can help platform holders grow and expand their install base beyond traditional gaming audiences. Again, these are just quick examples, but if you can do anything, do have a quick think about the role that your game could play in the wider business objectives of your partners and how you can help each other. Because often, again, if you're a small dev, you've maybe got a couple of hundred followers, you can do all you like, but it won't add up to the amount of impact that you can have by getting retweeted or supported by the Sonys, the Microsofts of the world, of the gaming world. If you're not sure what their objectives are, read the articles, watch latest E3 presentations. Again, it all sounds quite obvious, but also we're at Develop as well. All those key people are going to have representatives here, developer evangelists, developer relations, those kind of people you need to be trying and meeting. Have a conversation. It's literally their job to find you, talk to you, and promote your content. So these conversations, they cost nothing, but the return is completely endless. So cross-promotion, go do it, go find people, go have chats. You've probably be doing it for the last 2 days anyway. So my fifth point is repurpose assets. This is so fun. AAA studios, they've got really big, dedicated teams, big budgets, and often years of time to create extensive suites of assets. You think about the big AAA games and how many trailers and how many images and how many blog posts and the amount of time it would take to make that. But regardless of how many assets you're able to create, you have to make the most of them. And that doesn't matter whether you're making them in-house or you're paying for them externally. Make the most of everything you make. So, for example, one trailer is not just one trailer. It's also the potential for stills, GIFs, teasers, cut downs for social media. You can update that trailer with press quotes or player reactions for another post-launch beat. So again, if you do have limited time to create pieces of artwork, trailers, blog posts, whatever it may be, think about how you can stretch out that content and reuse it again. Similarly, when you're creating your key art, so the main bit of artwork that you're going to be using to promote your game, make sure that it's high-res, wide, tall enough to use in everything from online storefronts to physical event banners, which can be massive. I've been in the situation where smaller teams have been offered free or discounted event space, and they didn't have the artwork big enough or good enough to support that free space. So always think about that when you're building your key art. And finally, don't be afraid to kind of recycle or even repost the same assets. I think, mine are spamming people constantly, especially if your assets are high performing, you can reuse them, you can repost them, you can reshare them. Absolutely fine. So always think about, again, how you can take what you can do, work within the confines of what you can do, the time you do have, and stretch that out. So my penultimate point is about considering multiple angles. And this kind of ties back into what I was saying about cross-promotion, but it goes beyond B2B partnerships. And I just think that the point I want to make here is there is no such thing as one homogeneous target audience. That does not exist. Your target audience are not all identically into all of the same things just because they all happen to own an Xbox or a PlayStation or a PC or whatever it may be. And there are plenty of people out there who wouldn't consider gaming their primary interest. They might not call themselves gamers, but they absolutely play and enjoy video games and spend their money on them. So what I would do here is really kind of consider the features or the themes of your games and see who else you could be talking to. So, for example, you're making a racing game. It could be just as fruitful to market that racing game to car enthusiasts and motoring magazines as to traditional racing gamers. Or maybe you're making a cooking game. You could try and promote the game with food bloggers who are interested in tech. As long as the audiences that you're talking to are open to buying and playing games on your chosen platform, then targeting different audiences, even with different messages and different assets, is a really, really solid strategy. So my final point is about finding your voice, and I'm aware I've been using mine far too much. But one of the most important things you can do to make an impact online is to find your voice, not just in how you're literally talking, but how you present yourself across all channels. So this really is an art that can take years if you're trying to do it consciously, but it's something that should come organically through the team, through the culture of the team, the culture of your studio, your personality or personalities. So Media Molecule, who I used to work with, for instance, they wouldn't bat an eyelid to show incredible dev diaries with really sophisticated tech alongside cooking recipes and Instagram shots of the dogs running around the studio, because that's the kind of culture that they've created. It's kind of work hard, play hard. And what would work for them might not work for another studio. Only Rockstar could get away with Citizens United, negating technology for life and people's safety. And if you're not familiar with that particular acronym from GTA Liberty City Stories, I'll let you check that out one for yourselves. It's not safe for work. But yeah, find your voice, find your people, and this will soon be reflected in a loyal and growing community. So that's kind of me done, actually. But just to quickly summarize, put as much time as possible upfront to research. Make sure you're constantly measuring and improving your social media activity. Invest in your community, particularly in your most loyal and active members, and find those money-can't-buy experiences to show your appreciation and keep their loyalty. Thirdly, be selective in what social media channels you use. Don't overstretch yourselves. Cross-promote with larger brands by finding the role of your game and helping them fulfill their business objectives. Repurpose your marketing assets to get the biggest return on investment. Consider multiple angles and audiences, And finally, find a voice and space of your own to continue building the channels to get your game noticed. So I'm aware that's been quite brief, but hopefully you found those strategies quite useful, and hopefully you can start putting them into practice and promoting your games. And I'm happy to take any questions if you have them. It was so clear, no questions. One in the front.
Is there any particular software that you would recommend for maybe scheduling your social media, or just any software which might help that you can get for free that might help you achieve any of these?
I mean, there's more advanced versions of them, things like TweetDeck, Hootsuite. Status Brew is quite good for the free version for looking at your following ratios and scheduling posts. Some things are, do come at a cost, somewhere between, on average, maybe £5 to £10 a month, but I often find that's a good return on investment if you're going to be doing anything. But yeah, generally I find that the kind of the bigger ones, the Hootsuites of the world, are the most successful ones for limited funds. Cool, thanks.